Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 184. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You can drop a follow over there, get notified when we go live, join the chat, join the discussion for the recording. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK, and go over to YouTube the very next week where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video in MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday on those podcast services and YouTube. Last but not least, any way you can support the show, like, shares, reviews, comments, all that jazz, wherever you are consuming this content. If you take that time, if you're not following, subscribed, or drop a review, it helps out a lot. Hopefully it doesn't take a lot of your time. I would appreciate and love you for it. Today, what are we talking about? We're doing a bigger episode today. We got 3 topics today. We're going to be talking about AEW's All In, which as of recording literally just wrapped up. We're going to be talking about the Mortal Kombat 1 beta, and we are going to be talking about the Twisted Metal show. So let's get on into it. So topic 1. Sorry if I keep looking down. Artemis is here co-piloting. Being good for now, but maybe he'll meow for you guys later, as in good fashion, or as not good fashion, normal fashion. So, AEW held their All-In pay-per-view today, and they did a great job of marketing this thing, obviously with, being the first time, I think, they've been overseas, selling out Wembley, which is a crazy huge stadium. I think in total they announced they got 81,035 fans in there. A phenomenal feat. So just wanted to run through the matches. Probably not everything in super big detail, even though I wrote down a lot of notes. Just talk about the event, talk about the matches, the results, things that went down. And just have some fun kind of recapping pretty much their biggest event ever, which they definitely... like I said, marketed that way since the inaugural All In 2018 before AEW was even a company. So we did open up with the 0 hour, that streaming show, I don't know, streams of the match prior to get you to buy it and all that stuff. I popped in maybe an hour-ish, a little more beforehand, because they did announce 2 matches at the time when I knew for the 0 hour. The big one is going to be the tag team, the Ring of Honor tag team titles on the line with Aussie Open against MJF and Adam Cole. So that was the big one they were selling. And then I guess on Collision, they promoted that Hook and Jack Perry were going to be going for the FTW championship as well. So it was like, oh, okay, turn that on. Obviously get in the swing of things of like watching the show and whatnot. And I'll say before I talk about 0 hour more in depth, I watch AEW through a lens. So like, I don't watch Weekly, Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, all that stuff. I haven't watched in quite some time, to be honest. I'm kind of on the far end where I'll pay attention to social media or podcasts and listen to like what happened or see what's going on there and see clips and snippets of things. But I haven't watched an AEW pay-per-view in quite some time just because, I don't know, not everybody. There's a lot of wrestling fans that are like, oh, WWE's the best. Oh, AEW's the best. You can't like the other one. It's not anything like that I think AEW's bad or shouldn't be around or anything like that. It's just there's been a lot of disconnect, in my opinion, from my viewing point where I'm like, it wasn't resonating as well. Obviously, there's all the drama we've talked about in past podcasts. That doesn't make me feel good in certain aspects. And then from a story perspective, some characters, as I've talked about, they bring on people. It's exciting, and then they do maybe a short stint of something, and then they're gone. Not gone from the company, but just not seen, heard of, anything like that. Or there's a lot of start and stop, and you don't get these payoffs. And that's at least my opinion of what I'm seeing from AEW and stuff like that. That was kind of detracting me from that. And, not to say other wrestling companies don't do this. Impact, WWE, New Japan, I don't have any watching experience with. But, like, I'm sure those problems have happened in other places. It's just how I was feeling watching it. So there's that. Also, not having cable probably doesn't help the cause at all. But with this one, there was a lot of buzz around it. Obviously, as we've talked about, it was a huge wrestling event, selling the 81,000 or having 81,000 people there, going outside of the U.S., which we've seen from other recent pay-per-views, premium live events from WWE's standpoint with Puerto Rico and Clash of the Castle in London, or rather Wales, and then Money in the Bank in London. Like, those guys are great. The audience really adds a layer to it. Obviously, like, there is pro wrestling there, but there's not a big company there, so they got their independence. There's not these bigger shows, and they're kind of like hankering for something, and they really showed up and showed out for this show, and it just kind of added that little extra layer of energy to everything, similar to a Mania, similar to a Royal Rumble per se. Even if the card isn't the most exciting or the best, you want to feel part of that event energy, just taking it in there, and I feel like All In was that for me. So I wanted to dive into it, watch it. There's been a lot of, I don't know if building problems is the correct terminology. Booking for this didn't really go well, and I know a lot of people were kind of up in arms with, like, you haven't announced anything, which granted, sometimes they do that, but they didn't have a lot of build and storylines, or some things didn't seem big enough for the pay-per-view. Obviously, with All Out being next week, that's a little tough, because you want to go hard for this show, but then you also want to make sure you have stuff for the next show. They were in a tough pickle. And things came together, but some of it was a little rough. I understand with the Bucks and Page and Omega, like, them re-signing. If they weren't going to re-sign, you couldn't really book them until you knew they were locked into something. And then you had the Cash Wheeler stuff, which I don't know if is settled, which we'll talk about, I guess, a little bit more later. And then just the disorganization of the company as a whole. I don't know, obviously, all the details. I can only speculate off of what I've seen or heard from other quote-unquote news sources, podcasts, journalists, whatever, of, like, Ray Phoenix not having the correct visas or being able to travel to London, and then AR Fox also having similar travel issues or doesn't want to be on the show. I don't know what it was. But, like, these are things you should have locked in with your talent as an organization before you book things. Especially, like, if we're going to go off of Phoenix's match in particular, Stadium Stampede, like, we announced BCC was going to have 3 mystery partners. Very cool to see LAX, Santana and Ortiz back. But then there was their third, because Phoenix was going to be there, but then he's not there, so then it just turns into a 5-on-5. Like, who's the 6th that they did have planned? I think rumors were Homicide, which would have been neat. That just gets cut and doesn't get a payday. It's like, ugh, that sucks. So, a lot of rough waters going into it. The matches themselves and the event ran very smoothly, which overall, that's what we're going to remember, which is great. It's just concerning in some ways of, like, you want everyone to do well. You want AEW to do well, you want WWE to do well, Impact to do well, New Japan, all these companies do well, because then they elevate each other, right? That competition, that variety. And I know it's probably the anti-AEW guys that are mostly saying this, of, like, you don't want it to turn into a WCW situation. I know that's jumping the shark way too early, close, whatever, like, making a lot of assumptions. It's just, like, with the drama, with other stuff, it's whenever it's this giant, like, I'm just going to say icky, I can't think of a better word, this troublesome spot, it's like, oh boy, alright, oof, like, we don't want it to fail, so try and, I don't know, hope for the best, get things under control. Sorry, went on a tangent there. We're supposed to be talking about 0 Hour. So we had 2 matches announced for 0 Hour. When I tuned in, we did have Double J Jeff Jarrett coming out with the squad. kind of shit-talked London a lot, playing up the heel character, and he was interrupted by Paul White, Anthony Ogogo, and Grado. Grado got a big pop. I don't know much about him. I think I saw him a little bit in Impact years ago. But pretty much Show Ogogo and Grado would clear out the guys, choke slam, punches, and then Grado, I guess, got his revenge and chair-shotted Jarrett there. So, all right, cool. We got to see a little bit of a beat-up of the bad guys there, but that's how they kind of started, at least from where I popped in. Apparently, Simon Miller was on the show earlier in the day. I don't know what he was there for. He didn't wrestle or anything, but he was there as kind of like one of the... Stooges sounds like a bad term, but one of the guys in like just generic security attire. So cool to see him there. I know people were kind of rallying for him to be on something and wrestle, but at least this is a small appearance. So good for him. We did get into our matches as I was expecting after that. So we did open with the first one with Aussie Open versus Better Than You Baby for the Ring of Honor World Champion titles. Tag titles, jeez. Fine match here. Nothing super exciting. We did gimmick it up. We did do the kangaroo kick by MJF. We did do the double clothesline finish. And we did end up having new champions. There was a lot of discussion about this of like, is this where they're going to turn? Is this why they're going to hate each other in the main event? Nope. They just won the Ring of Honor tag titles and celebrated there. Everybody was super stoked. Crowd was very loud cheering for these guys. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. One, in our main event later, and two, down the line, depending on the result of the main event. So we got new Ring of Honor tag titles, champions there. Aussie Open did great. I think this is the first time I've seen them wrestle. Yeah, cool to see them in their home, well, not their country, but area as well. So hopefully they had a good time, minus losing the championships. Then we got a random cutaway of somebody in the crowd, and I was like, why are we showing this on the buy-in? But Mercedes Moné were just chilling way up high in the nosebleed rafter areas, just watching the show. Bought a ticket, got invited, whatever. But those of you guys who don't know, Sasha Banks formerly, she was there, just hanging out and watching. So, all right, cool. Maybe they're talking. There was rumors of Forbidden Door, but unfortunately she had her ankle injury. Will she be going elite? We'll have to see. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Then we got our second match. We got Hook versus Jack Perry for the FTW Championship. I'll admit, didn't see all of this match. Ran and got food right before the event. So only saw a bit of it. Jack Perry entered in a limo through the stadium, and there was a lot of fighting on top of the limousine. A lot of suplexes. We had... I think a pile driver or two. We had a suplex through, or at least on the windshield, which looked nasty. Two eventually made it back to the ring with Perry's recent run-ins with the ECW alumni. We got a little bit of a tease of an RVD coast to coast with the trash can. He just jumped off the top rope, like down onto the apron, flipped everybody off. So he's been playing up the heel very well. And that was the last thing I saw. Some things happened. Hook got the FTW title belt back. Good recap, Bret. Good recap. Sorry, I didn't see the rest of it. But so there's that. So then we headed into All In Official. And at this point, I was running late. Yeah, I timed out things poorly. So didn't see the opening. But when we walked in, the first match was CM Punk going against Samoa Joe for the real World Championship. For me personally, I was happy to hear Nigel McGuinness back on commentary. I know he's been doing stuff with them for Ring of Honor, I believe, or Collision, one of those two, for a little while now. But for me, being a fan of NXT Black and Gold, happy to see, or rather hear him on commentary again. He's got good insight and a good flow and chemistry with everybody, so good to hear him on there. Crowd seemed very mixed with the whole Punk situation, at least when I was watching. Every time Joe hit something, things were up, things were loud, and then when Punk hit stuff, it was kind of lower boos. Yeah. At one point, Samoa Joe was going to slam Punk into the lower section of the table that they had there for the announcers. Cuts him open pretty bad on top of his head, so he's gushing blood. The match would continue, but eventually Punk's going to hit the Pepsi Plunge, I believe, from the top rope for the win, so he does retain his real AEW World Championship. A little bit of abrupt finish there, which I'll say that about a few of these matches, but all in all, the two did great, or a good job. I wasn't personally super invested or stoked, but it was fine. It was a good time. And then we got Twitter being Twitter, or rather X. Remember how I talked about drama, y'all? Apparently, allegedly, Punk had gotten in a physical altercation right before his match. Who figured? Not with the Bucks, not with Omega, not with Paige like we thought would maybe potentially happen, and scared for ourselves with this all-in. That would be brawl in, not brawl out, whatever. Apparently him and Jack Perry got into an altercation. Apparently words were said, and then I read later that apparently there was a punch thrown, and then apparently I heard there was a choke or something. And then apparently Perry was asked to leave the building. No idea what's going on. Whoa. So, I don't know if cringeworthy is the correct answer. It's so stressful, because this can be great. There's a lot of good talent there, young, old, experienced, not experienced, and it's just like, what are we doing? We've talked about the Punk thing. You can go back and watch that on a separate podcast. I'll add an addendum to that podcast where I think maybe he's got a little bit too much power or sway, but it is what it is. Oof. Next, we had our 6-man tag match. We had Omega, Hangman, and Kota Ibushi taking on Takeshita, Jay White, and Juice Robinson. Bullet Club Gold was there in full with the Bang Bang Gang. The Gun Club was there. And, this was a weird one. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we want Omega in a singles match. I guess they're going to do that all out with Takeshita. Fine. This was a weird one. This was a weird one because I felt like I should have been more excited during the match than I was. This one kind of fell flat for me. Not that they were doing anything bad. There was definitely some killer shots in there, knee strikes, elbow strikes that were solid throughout. Good chemistry, obviously, by the good guys, the Elite, Golden Lovers doing some of their routine. A little bit of miscommunication. I don't know if it was a language barrier or just the amount of people. It's a multi-man match, that happens. Of just timing some things out. But yeah, nothing really resonated with me here. Small notes, huge pop for Kenny when he came out. Not surprised there. In the title cards, they kind of do this little like anecdote above their names sometimes, just like a fun fact, or like they were this time champion or whatever. On Kota Ibushi's, it said ex-IWGP World Heavyweight Champion and not former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Did they break up? Did he get injured and have to relinquish it? That just seemed like weird phrasing to me of why they would do ex and not former. I know he had trouble there towards the end of his career or tie-in with them. But yeah, that was an odd little thing that I just happened to notice. So yeah, overall, some hard hits. I mentioned the knees. There was a nasty jumping knee reversal from Takeshita onto Kota Ibushi. Kenny Omega was favoring his wrist at some times, so hopefully he's okay. There's a poison run on Takeshita where he kind of got spiked on his head. But yeah, to wrap up the match, so Takeshita did that reversal into the knee strike on Dakota. I believe after that, Hangman's going to hit a buckshot lariat to Takeshita's back. While this is going on, good guys are setting up to kind of beat Takeshita. Juice Robinson comes in. eats a V trigger. Then Jay White eats a V trigger. After this, Takeshita kind of steps in, uses Kenny Omega's momentum against him, gets a pin on Omega afterwards. This was another one that was abrupt. Quick roll up, 1, 2, 3. Crowd seemed very kind of surprised and shocked. I don't disagree. It was kind of abrupt. It was kind of out of nowhere. Some people have kind of been predicting that the bad guys would win just so you could set up the all-out altercation. But yeah, it kind of drained the energy from everybody, it seemed. As Bullet Club Gold and Takeshita would take the win here. And yeah, they went quiet there. Then we got our next match, and I'm surprised these ones are all clustered together. But we got FTR versus the Young Bucks 3. And I hate to say it, but this was another one that kind of fell flat for me, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just my cynical nature. Maybe it's my mental attitude lately. Who knows? But the match was fine, but nothing like blew it out of the water and made it like insane. Until the end. Majority of the match basic stuff, you know. Let's start with the entrances. The Bucks came out to a Super Kick Knocks You Out song and then went to their traditional music. I think that kind of blew the pop for me when they came out to that one. And then it changed because, yeah, the crowd was kind of like, what's going on? And then they saw them and were like, oh, yeah, okay. So that was weird. It also could have been still the down moment from the 6-man. So we got that. A weird Freddie Mercury call out by JR. Oh, is he still alive? No, he's not. And he's like, oh yeah, I knew that. Just because the Bucks are paying homage to him in terms of attire and stuff. Yeah, that was odd. Nice choice. FTR had some armbands on for Brody and Bray. Crowd was very split between the two teams. And then one more note before just getting into the final sequences. Wembley, obviously, huge stadium. It looked amazing. It looked just like WrestleMania, which we'll talk about once again later. Amazing to see another company do this. I felt really bad for the sections. There was just this line of sun because of the arena being open at the top. I felt awful for them of just like, they're sitting there in the sun while this whole thing's going on. Obviously, that would be alleviated later with the later hours, but it's just like, oh, that must have sucked. So yeah, we had a lot of BTE triggers. One initially failed, which led to Cash Wheeler spearing Nick Jackson through the ropes. FTR did their FTR trigger and did the little kiss on the cheeks thing. Shatter Machine kick out, potential of the first kick out of the Shatter Machine. I don't remember from my NXT history, but the commentators did bring that up. Then we got a super kick from Dax. Cash missed a springboard 450, alluding to one of their previous matches. Super kick by Matt. Then got a kick out. We got a Fight Forever chant. BT trigger this time worked, but the pin was broken up. Bucks did a Shatter Machine on Dax, BTE to Cash Wheeler, but then kicked out again. They set up for the Meltzer driver. It gets interrupted and fails, goes into a Shatter Machine. FTR will retain the AEW Tag Team Championships. They offer a hand to the Bucks after the match, but the Bucks disgruntledly walk away at the end. Honestly, I thought the Bucks were going to win this one. Just with the recent events, obviously nothing's really set in stone, locked down, happened yet with Cash and his, not arrest, but I don't know legal terminology, but he got in trouble recently. So I was like, oh, maybe this will take it away, and then we'll at least be like, hey, okay, let's get this situation kind of calmed down, figure out, solved, whatever, and then we can move forward. But we kept the belts on FTR. I don't think it's a bad idea. Both teams are phenomenal. It's just awkward timing with that, as that kind of also potentially put this match at jeopardy initially. Obviously, it worked out, but interesting choice there. I'm not sure if I wanted to be super cynical and be like, oh, this is a punk thing. I doubt it is that, but just interesting choice with the recent events that you wouldn't go that way to at least kind of clear the air, but you're good. Another low point for the crowd. I mean, like I said, they were split. They were happy FTR won. But walking away from the handshake kind of put a downer on them with the Bucks again. I don't know if Bucks are going heel or what, but just another weird kind of crowd reaction type thing. And then we got Stadium Stampede. Boy howdy. The camera cuts and the craziness of this match. As to be expected, there's fucking 10 guys all fighting randomly around the arena. There's no way we're going to see everything, whether it's televised or you're watching live. No way you're going to see everything. No, we're going to keep track of anything. Even though I almost had... Jesus Christ. I had so many notes. There's no way we're going to go through all these, but just wanted to write down stuff as I saw it, just in case there was anything kind of that stood out as the big moment. So I'm going to hold my phone up here. That way I'm looking relatively straight. And yeah, let's kind of see what did go on. Like I said, I'm jumping around. This is not an official recap. There are other people that do a way better job at that than me. So if you just want to hear the high points, let's get into it. First things first. The BCC, they enter through the crowd. So it's same with Santana and Ortiz. Cool, great. The crowd realized, oh wait, there's these big areas we can leave our seats and run. So the crowd rush Santana and Ortiz. Thank God they had a lot of security, but guess who did not have a lot of security? Moxley. Moxley had one guy around him boxing him out. Yeah, they were right on top of Mox. There was a kid, too, that kind of got in Mox's way, but he was very kind, patted him on the head, and kind of kept going, just like, cool to see in a way, but also very scary. Just seeing all those people kind of rush down to the floor and not be like, hey, let's not do this, and realize they need room to go. Ortiz, in my opinion, seemed very disinterested in this match. There's been some tension between him and Santana. This is the first time they're teaming since Santana's injury, but they've had a bit of a falling out. I don't know if he was just being super serious heading to the ring or whatever, but he seemed very like no expression, just there. So that was just something I noticed. Nigel McGuinness randomly called out Bryan Danielson, calling him Brittle Danielson. There's been rumors that Nigel's getting back in the ring or preparing to. So maybe they're trying to set up that program or just alluding to their past. Okay, so that was pre-match stuff. So let's talk about weaponry. We had barbed wire boards. We had ladders. We had chairs. We had barbed wire chairs. We had those skewers that go in people's head in death matches. We had Legos. We had... what other stuff did we have? Oh, we had a branding iron at one point. We had cookie sheets. We had guardrails. We had bottles. We had umbrellas. We had barbed wire boards. I think I already said that one. We had glass at one point. We had Sue showing up with snacks. A lot of weaponry. A lot of blood was shed in this match, so if that's not your thing, maybe avoid watching that one. So everybody kind of paired off. I think it was Eddie Claudio, it was Chucky T and Yuta, it was Trent and Mox, and then it was Penta and Santana and Orange and Ortiz. They kind of obviously, flexed and mixed and matched here and there. I think the main split off was Chucky, Yuta, Eddie, and Claudio. They went backstage. They went up to the higher up sections. Yes. The upper sections to fight, while the remainder of the six fought by the ringside area and kept the action there. Some big matches that we had, or not big matches, big moves that we did have. Penta throwing some chair shots at LAX to the face. Wasn't that a rule that they said we're not going to do unprotected face shots anymore? That was a question mark. Mox got his skewers reversed on him. That looked nasty in his head. Santana would powerbomb Penta into some chairs. This led to a scary moment of like, uh-oh, Penta looks really hurt. The doctors were called down. Don't worry, he was fine. One funny moment, Eddie, Kingston, and Claudio were fighting up in the higher up sections, and there was empty chairs up there, because, yeah, nosebleeds. People might want to get those because they're cheaper, but might also not want to. And because they're empty, Nigel claimed, oh, the crowd doesn't want to get near them, instead of, like, just don't acknowledge them. We understand. They're empty chairs. You don't need to make an excuse. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a fork that was used. Busted up Orange Cassidy pretty well as Moxley would dig in there. There was a brain buster on a chair to Orange. Eddie Kingston randomly beat up a security guy at one point. There was a little ladder bridge in the corner. Trent got pulled off the top rope and kind of fell onto that ladder bridge. He also got powered bombed onto the ladder. And then, oh, this was kind of cool looking. So there was the barbed wire board. Moxley had set it down. Him and Trent were fighting. And then he picked up Trent like a suplex, but launched him. So you've probably seen the move before. But he picks him up. He launched him off of his shoulder. So Trent did like a flip going forward and landed on that barbed wire board. That was pretty cool. Trent was taking a lot of the punishment here because after that and a kick out by him, Mox said, you know what? Okay, brain buster. Did a brain buster on the stairs to Trent. I don't know how they do it and not die, hurt themselves, etc. because that looked nasty. So they gather up by the entrance. There's 2 tables set up there, as well as Ortiz setting up a table by the ringside. The minivan with Sue did arrive where she had snacks and the trays, so the good guys get a little bit of momentum returned in their favor. Speaking of returns, Penta returned after getting escorted to the back by doctors. He was fine, went through a quick costume change, came back as Obscuro, and beat up Santana a little bit. Now, him and Santana were setting up for the table spot, 2 tables next to kind of the entrance, Trons and stuff like that. They're setting up on the ladder. They're going to do something on there on the tables. The ladder, while they were brawling on it, shattered underneath them. That was quite scary. Kind of a flimsy piece of shit ladder that they got here. So they literally fell from the top down because the rungs beneath them kind of fell out. Luckily, the one side of the ladder still had a majority of their rungs as well as the opposite side's top rung. They cut away from it. The 2 reset. They went back to it and they finished up with their spot there as Penta hit like a Canadian destroyer off the ladder on Santana through those tables. But yeah, kind of a big yikes there. We had a best friend's big hug on Yuta, and then they all beat him down. We got a big swing on Orange by Claudio. During all of the big swing, there was a random suplex on Legos outside. There was a suplex on an outside table by Trent to Ortiz, and all during that, Cesaro's swinging Orange around for like 20 to 30 rotations. Orange would recover from this. He's going to orange punch Claudio 3 times, but he would kick out. Orange says, all right, I guess I got to do more. Underneath the, the ring, grabs tape, and grabs a bucket. He duct tapes his hands so the sticky side is on the outside and wrist. He breaks the glass into the bucket and then shoves his hand in there to put glass on his hand. Yep. He goes to punch Claudio, but Mox saves him. A little reverse DDT on the glass to Moxley from Orange Cassidy. Claudio's going to launch Orange up for the launching uppercut thing that he does. Eddie will come in to save. Eventually, Kingston's going to hit Mox in the corner through another table. Orange is going to hit the final orange punch onto Claudio with the glass in his hand, and best friends Penta and Eddie Kingston will win. Did that recap sound like a whole smorgasbord of stuff? Sure did, because that's what this match was, and I only read half to a third of my notes, so yeah, it was insane. I did like this one. Amidst all the cutting and like what is going on, it wasn't bad. There was just like those little things that, as a wrestling, like a hardcore wrestling fan, if you really take in everything and anything and everything, media wise, news wise, of like, oh, so and so is this, so and so is this, of just noticing certain things, like the Ortiz thing. That was something that kind of just was interesting to watch, was his relationship with Santana. Obviously, they were professional, worked together in this. Will they continue? Did they recover their relationship? No idea. But this was insane. This was fun. Hopefully, if they're going to do anything like that in the next event anywhere, they need to figure out security, because that could have... I obviously didn't, and it shouldn't, but something stupid could happen. And stupid in a silly way or stupid in an awful way. Anywhere, everywhere. Happened at Gamescom, not anything bad, but like a similar situation with like just people getting to places they're not supposed to be, or dealing with people who are putting on the show. It's not good. You need to keep people safe. Obviously, these guys are tough because they're wrestlers, but still. 1, fans, be smart. 2, organizations and companies, please be smart as well. After this, we had the Fatal 4-Way for the Women's Championship. We had Britt Baker versus Shida versus Toni Storm versus Saraya. Saraya would enter first with her family with the little We Will Rock You song from Queen. Got a huge pop, obviously her home country. Toni Storm then came out in her new gimmick and new song. She came out to save the Queen or something like that. Interesting. The Outcasts, this would be the story told in this match of like, can they coexist? You're both going after the same title. And we played this up phenomenally. They start out with a hug. They say we're good. They're going to beat up on the other two. Eventually, they hit a big move. I don't recall what it was exactly. But they end up both pinning that other competitor. And they're like, what are you doing? I thought we talked about this in the back. And then they start getting to a dissension. Then Toni, beating up Britt Baker, brings her over to the, not curtain, the guardrail, where Saraya's family is sitting ringside. She hands her over to Mama Saraya. I'm sorry, I do not recall her name. She holds her to help out Toni. Britt moves, and Toni hits Mom. Oh, no. And Saraya's like, oh, you done it now. Mom sells great. Obviously, she's a wrestler. She knows what she's doing. And then she gets pissed at ringside. And, yeah, Saraya's like, what is that? And the two finally fight. Crowd's really there for Saraya. Ruby Soho tries to run down and calm things down. She unfortunately gets hit by Toni, and she's like, Ruby's like, all right, I'm done. Pieces out and walks out. Eventually, this is going to lead to the finish. Britt had gotten the momentum back in her favor against Shida and tries to attempt to put in the lockjaw. Shida's fighting out of it, trying to wrench her head back, keeping her mouth closed so Britt can't finish the submission. While this is going on, Toni and Saraya both enter the ring. Toni with the belt and Saraya with the spray that the Outcasts have been using. Saraya would spray Toni in the eyes, hit the... it's not the hits the Rampage, what it used to be called. I think it's called the Nightcap now. Hits it on Toni as the struggle continues for the other submission. 1, 2, 3. Saraya would win and become new AEW Women's Champion. So, not bad. I'm not against it. The crowd was really into it. Obviously, right? Saraya's been out of action for a while. The whole neck injury. It's her home country. Let's, throw her this. I know there's going to be some kind of mixed bag on that stuff. I'm fine with it. It's just a little unfortunate. I see why, from a story point of view, we needed to do this. Have Toni lose the belt to Shida. Bad guy to good guy. And then have Saraya win here, beating a good guy there. It's just unfortunate. Shida to get the belt back. to have her initial run with the pandemic, and then now to have it for a few weeks to a month, to then lose it again, and then also to be, if you want to think about it even further, of Tony had the belt. I guess we had nothing going for her, and we're just going to do this title swap to get it on to Saraya just for the feel-good moment. Like, moments are good, don't get me wrong. Like, this is a great moment, her family, her country, all that stuff. It's just similar to the discussion everything's going on right now of, like, in terms of women's wrestling. Granted, there's good stuff out there, but for some of the larger companies, it's not good enough. There's not any stories being booked for the ladies. There's not time given for the women. There needs to be more investment in their work and effort in comparison as well to their male counterparts. It needs to be more equal in terms of care, quality, etc. Not that everything has to be like participation trophy per se, of like, oh, everybody has to do this because we have to be fair. But if they can show they're working hard, the work is there, and they can put on good stuff, we should reward that and put time into it, kind of thing, if that makes sense. Or give an opportunity to see if you can run with, hypothetical, said ball, and then build, instead of just like, we need something, so randomly you four get together and do this thing. That's a discussion for another day, but Saraya, new champion here. Coolio. Then we got our coffin match. We got Swerve Strickland and Christian Cage taking on Sting and Darby Allin. Swerve comes out to a live performance by his rapper that does his song, Big Swerve's House chants at the opening there. Luchasaurus would enter with Christian, but then go back to the back for reasons. And then Sting and Darby would enter to Seek and Destroy by Metallica. So cool to see that. This match was good. It was actually longer than I thought it was. Good teases of like closing the casket, but not like getting saves and stuff like that. Darby's continues to be Darby and is insane and hurting his body. Jumping on the casket a few times, seeing the dents in it, either when he fully hit his move or if he missed. Like, that was nasty. Sting looked good here. At one point, we did get Luchasaurus making a save to help out Christian, who was in the casket at the time, being attacked by both of them. So Luchasaurus came down, make the save, and in a lingering moment when Luchasaurus was shouting at somebody, I was like, oh, we're lingering, we're holding here for a while. But no, the evening force was just Nick Wayne. No Edge, no rated R superstar Adam Copeland here. So Nick Wayne makes a save, attacks with the skateboard. It does absolutely nothing to Luchasaurus. Saurus takes him, choke slams him on the board, and then he carries Wayne away to the back, and they never return. That would be an interesting spot in this one. That was weird. But anyways, everybody else is going to keep fighting. We're going to try and get at least one person in that coffin. Like I said, they were very creative of like saves here, whether it was an arm, whether it was a bat, whether it was the back, whatever it was. A lot of good saves here. The tension was building. Speaking of this, we kind of head into the final sequences of this match. Sting was fighting off the bad guys, but unfortunately gets hit with a low blow by Christian with the bat. Swerve takes him out with the stomp, grabs the coffin. They put it into the ring, put Sting inside. He kind of spits on the bat and puts the bat with him. Unfortunately, this would be to his demise, as Sting's going to use that bat to keep the casket propped open. As Sting's getting out of the coffin, Swerve's going to do his like jump sidekick type move that he does. Don't know if it has an official name. Unfortunately, Sting's going to fall out to hit for that. He placed Sting on top of the closed casket, attempts a 450, but moves or misses. So Swerve's hurt. We get a Scorpion Death Drop on top of the coffin to Swerve. Sting opens it up, rolls in Swerve. Swerve saves himself by putting his hands outside, then starts to crawl out. Darby would then jump on Coffin Drop on top of the coffin while Swerve is halfway, so he kind of hits the spine. They put Swerve in, and Sting and Darby win from there. Yeah. 3 more matches. Woof. We had Jericho versus Ospreay. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but not great. It was fine. Fozzy performed, smart to put them on top of the entranceway. He didn't have to do the normal assemble everything for the Rock concert and dismantle it awkwardly and have them talk a while. Sammy Guevara entered with his Inner Circle jacket with Jericho. At one point, while the walls of Jericho were applied to Ospreay, Callis, upset, yells at Aubrey Edwards. Now, your guy is in the submission. Why would you distract the referee in this point? Sammy, during this, hits Ospreay with a baseball bat. Oh, I thought you guys were supposed to be the good guys. No, I guess we're kind of, well, I don't know. We're in that gray area. Crowd didn't like it. This is Ospreay's hometown or country. I don't know. But they didn't like that, so eventually we'd hit some more moves as Will did recover. Spanish Fly, we attempted a Hidden Blade, it went into a Code Breaker. Jericho attempted to do an Oz Cutter, but it was very awkward and they landed weird. Ospreay would kick out at 1 from that. Jericho would eventually hit a low blow that was not seen, that went into the Judas effect, kick out at 2. Ospreay would hit a Stormbreaker, which got kicked out of, calls for the Hidden Blade. Jericho flips him off. Ospreay would hit him with the Hidden Blade and a second Stormbreaker for Ospreay to pick up the win. Thank God. Post-match, Sammy tried to recover the Chris, and, try and get the crowd behind him. Like, yeah, you did a good job. I know it didn't go your way. But Jericho would end up pushing him away and leaves. So, dissension between the sex gods. After this, we got the announcement of the attendance, 81,035. I thought we were going to get some other surprise, but no, that was it. Trios tag titles were next. We got the Acclaimed and badass Billy Gunn versus the House of Black. House of Black, surprisingly, all in white. Very angelic as they entered. Also, very nice shout out and tribute as Buddy Matthews. Yeah. Entered with a lantern, kind of showing some respect to Bret in their entrance, so I did appreciate that. Theme song? Definitely like the old one better. That one did not work for me. It was House Rules, so I guess the opponent gets to pick. So the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn chose a no-holds-barred match. So this was another one very similar to the Stadium Stampede, where there was some cuts, a little bit hard to keep track of everything at points, but pretty much tornado tag from there. Julia Hart got involved early on. She attempted to stop some maneuvers, but Billy Gunn was not having that, told her to suck it. And then they hit the Scissor Me Timbers onto Julia, taking her out for a while. Randomly, we got another shot of Mercedes Moné during the Acclaimed match, not the ladies match, for whatever reason. People are happy about that shot, though. Triple Famousers, but Brody would get out of the way. Oh, no, Triple Famousers. Pin would happen. Got to 2, but Julie would pull out Aubrey Edwards. My apologies. That's how it happened. We got the end. That spin hook kick to Billy Gunn, but kicked out. Dante's Inferno was countered. Brody kicks out of Bowen's slam and the mic drop from Max Caster. Eventually, the good guys would get the momentum back in their favor as they hit one more Famouser to Brody, another slam, another mic drop. All of them together pin Brody, and the Acclaimed win. Mercedes was shown once again, throwing up the little deuces, the little scissors, so she's a Acclaimed fan. The House hold on to the belts, and then they eventually hand them over in good sportsmanship, and we get a Scissor Me Daddy Ass moment. World title match, final main event. Adam Cole versus MJF for the world title, your Ring of Honor tag team titles, or champions going after each other for this. Initially, right off the bat, the two start off the match by throwing on their team shirt, or their t-shirts, the Better Than You Baby shirts, to show they're still, not in cahoots, but they're still friends. They are still respectful of one another, and they're going to have a good match here. Let's go friendship chant. We got a handshake, and then we kind of rolled into it. We got a little taunting from each of them as they kind of were getting the upper hand. We had a strut and dance by MJF at one point. Cole got the upper hand at one point and charged up for his Adam Cole Bebe, and even MJF was like, don't do it. Like, don't do it, man. Come on. MJF goes for another handshake after starting a sportsmanship chant. Cole goes to reciprocate, but that's when MJF pokes him in the eye. We get a he's our scumbag chant. MJF says that's on me, goes to help Adam Cole out of the corner where he sat down. As soon as Cole gets picked back up, Cole slaps him in the face. So now we're starting to get a little tense. So Adam kind of played the heel here, as it seems like the crowd's just kind of understanding of like, this is Max's character. He cheats. He does stuff similar to a Guerrero, or similar with Eddie Guerrero. So Cole was getting booed whenever he would do nasty stuff like pulling the hair or other stuff that just wasn't good guy behavior. Eventually he's going to rip off MJF's t-shirt. The two are going to go at it for a while. It leads to them going to the outside, and MJF's giving himself a little pep talk. He's like, hey, this is for the title. He'll understand. We'll be fine. Puts Cole on the announce table and sets up for a tombstone. He eventually talks himself out of it. He's not going to do that. And he kind of does a little lap of like, man, what's going on? What's going on? As he comes back, Cole, no hesitation, uses the tombstone on him on the table. Table did not break at all. So there's that. We get some asshole chants as well. Now, small stuff that like really doesn't matter in the long scheme of things. Earlier on, there was a count out spot. I'm going to talk about the count out spot. I'm going to talk about this table spot. Let's talk about the table spot first, just because we just talked about it. Table doesn't break. They hit it, whatever. That's totally fine. As a wrestling fan, wrestling companies, please do not treat your audience like idiots. This could be any company. I just like, it was two back to back that made no sense to me, of just like, you're insulting my intelligence here. What are we doing? With the table spot, the monitors get moved out of the way. Totally fair. Let's get expensive equipment. Let's keep everybody safe as well. Get those out of the way. The commentators are returning back to their table as action goes back to the ring. I don't remember who said it, but someone was like, we're sorry, audience. We're going in blind with this match. We'll try and get our setup back as soon as possible. Motherfuckers, you're right next to the ring. I understand the monitor can give you the exact like perspective of the live TV audience. What we see, you see. Totally get that. So you can see hidden stuff or what the cameras are capturing. Totally get that. But don't say you're blind. The action is literally right in front of you. Just call what you see. Maybe you don't see every angle. That's okay. Don't be like, well, I don't know what's going on. It's literally 5 feet that way, but I don't know. That annoyed me a little bit. And then let's talk about the count out spot. So there was a big move hit on the stairs. I believe it was a suplex. They might have called it a brain buster from Adam Cole to MJF on the stairs. Looked nasty, whatever. MJF sold it perfectly. He looked dead, knocked out, whatever. Cole rolls back in the ring. Okay, totally fine. He's doing his thing. They do the out of the ring count out. Count to 10. Winner will be the person in the ring. The referee's counting. Cole looks concerned. That's his friend. Is his friend hurt? Yada, yada, yada. Perfect. Fine. Whatever. The count's getting high. 7-8. Cole is still in the ring, in the corner, chilling out. We get to a 9 count. Cole's still there. The commentators even said this at one point. If you don't know, and you're not a wrestling fan, if you're doing a title match, the title only changes hands by a pinfall or a submission. Disqualification will not change the title match, or the title holder. Countouts will not change the title holder. Time limit expiration will not change the title holder. Unless other specified by like other rules that they've pre-established. But in just generic, it's those two. If I'm Adam Cole and I'm going for the world championship, regardless, any title, doesn't really matter, I can't win in a countout. Why am I staying in the ring? Go get his ass. He could have just stayed there and got count out. Now Max, being the good guy he is now, did the whole 9 count, run, jump in, save himself, right? Yay, he saved himself at 9. I think this is a great spot that in storytelling that you can use. We've seen it many times in the past. But that spot works because it's the challenger saving their opportunity to get the championship by getting in at the last second. The champion doesn't need to do that. I get it from a good guy perspective. Like, I fight strong and hard and I want to win the right way, yada yada. But the challenger should always go get him. Don't be an idiot. If they're heavy, I get it. You got to pick up dead weight, blah, blah, blah. Maybe the count's getting high. Roll back in, break it up, and then go back out. Get yourself more time. It's a very small thing. It's not going to be noticed by, like, the general audience, quote unquote, and I don't mean that in bad faith or whatever like that. It's just, like, insulting to be like, what are you doing? Get out there. Do you not want to win? I don't know. Seems silly to me. And to have those two moments back to back was just kind of frustrating. I digress. It could happen anywhere. It's not a anti-AEW thing. Just in general. Please. Oof. Sorry, rant over. So we get into the final moments of this. So we talked about the table spot. So that happens. We get a exchange between the two. A kick into a rolling elbow, into a code red, into a super kick exchange. Both are knocked down. They eventually are on opposite side of the rings. They kind of work up their way up the ropes to stand. And they look at each other and yell double clothesline. The two kind of run past each other. I believe MJF attempted the first clothesline. Cole ducks it. Cole attempts the next to pass through his clothesline. MJF ducks it. The two return on the third pass, both with an arm extended, clothesline each other. They fall to the center of the ring, both with an arm draped over one another. Bryce Remsburg, the referee. Okay, this is a third instance. Counts a pin. They both have an arm drape, so what's he going to do? Let's count both of them. 1, 2, 3. Crowd immediately gets pissed. This is really how you're going to end it in a freaking draw? Don't count it if they're both pinning. No one has an advantage there. What are you doing? So, anyways, it ends in a draw, blah, blah, blah. Cole gets pissed. Grabs the microphone from Justin Roberts, asks MJF for another 5 minutes. Storytelling. We're calling back to their first exchange before they were best buddies. Time limit expired. Pin didn't happen in the last second, right? And MJF said no, walked away. So he's asking Max now for an extension of 5 minutes. MJF says no again. And we're like, oh, this is when he's being a scumbag. This is when he's going to turn. He says, no, 5 isn't long enough. We're going until there's a motherfucking winner in Wembley. I was like, oh, okay. Everybody pops. Great. We try some roll-ups. Cole tries to roll up with the trunks. Fails. MJF tries to roll up with the trunks. Fails. Referee gets hit. He's taken out. Uh-oh. MJF grabs a chair. Tosses the chair to Cole. Cole tosses the chair to him. And we get this little ping pong between the chair. Boop, 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 boop. They throw it back and forth. The ref starts to rustle and get up. They're going to do the Guerrero spot. Cole throws the chair one more time to MJF and falls down. MJF then goes, takes the chair, drapes it over his neck, looks like he got a nasty shot, and just lays down. And Cole's looking at him like, what are you doing? Ref gets up, sees that the chair is over MJF's head. They get in a little discussion. During the distraction here, MJF would roll him up, kick out. Super kick and heat seeker, kick out. Panama Sunrise on the floor. Second attempt, Cole's going to do the Panama Sunrise in the ring on MJF. MJF pulls the referee in the way. He eats the Panama Sunrise. So Cole has now Panama Sunrise the referee, and referee's taking another nap. While this is going on, MJF goes into his trunks and grabs that diamond ring that he's got. Crowd's not happy with it, so he decides to be better and not use the ring. While this is going on, Roddy Strong, oh hey, comes in, low blows Max. Cole asks, what are you doing? He hits Sunrise on MJF, drops the boom, that running knee from the back, but there's no referee. Pins him for like a 10 count. Bryce finally wakes up, 2 count, kicks out. Roddy throws the belt in the ring, is like, do it, hit him with it. Cole takes off the t-shirt that he's been wearing this entire time. Conflicted, throws the belt out of the ring. Roddy storms out. There's a roll-up by MJF. And guess what? Another abrupt finish. MJF wins. MJF retained. Wow. Talk about drama. Talk about drama, Moose. A lot of pins, a lot of roll-ups, a lot of conflicted emotion between the guys. This would continue after the match as well. MJF, being good guy MJF now, goes to confront Adam Cole in the corner and try and comfort him. Could have gone either way. I was lucky. It could have been you. These people still love you. Watch this. Goes to grab the Ring of Honor tag titles that they won earlier in the night. Hands Cole his belt. Cole, in frustration, tosses his belt out of the ring. Doesn't want anything to do with it. And everybody's like, oh no. MJF tears him a new one. Oh, is this friendship all about the world title? Blah, blah, blah. This didn't mean anything. If you want it, just take it. You know what? Just get it out of the way. He moves to the opposite side of the ring, turns his back to Cole. Roddy comes back out. He's like, do it, Adam. Do it. Hit him with the belt. Cole looks conflicted. Throws the AEW World Championship out of the ring. And the two embrace and hug. And we're still best friends. Oh my God. Holy confetti. Confetti sprays everywhere. Everybody popped for the hug. We do see the Kingdom finally make an appearance. They hold back Roddy as he's kind of stewing on the ramp. And that's how we're going to close the night. The commentators would congratulate everybody. In-ring performers, producers in the back, the everybody from equipment and everything. And I think that is ultimately the big thing here. While overall, I think this pay-per-view, looking back, was fine. Nothing really lit a fire into me of oh shit or anything like that. And I'm not sure if it's just seeing more of this type of wrestling and action since AEW's inaugural year or years. Nothing stood out. Everything was just fine to good. I do think the final match was great in terms of storytelling. And nothing was bad. It was a fine to okay show. But the thing that is the biggest takeaway, or should be the biggest takeaway from this event, is the mass, like the spectacle that they and mass, what am I trying to say? The goal that was achieved here, the milestone, thank you, that was achieved here. 81,000 for a wrestling company that is only 5 years old, started from 3 individuals wanting to take all of the best independent talent, put them all together, and take on a stupid bet of we can sell out 10,000 seats. And to have it start from there, to go to a new company, to then survive a pandemic, to then be where they are today, this is insane. You know, there are other factors. We talked about the, you know, being overseas. Obviously, there's wrestling over there, but they don't have these types of events. You could make that argument. But I think regardless, 80,000 is 80,000. Like, it's a phenomenal feat for anyone. Obviously, WWE included. They pull a lot of big numbers. But obviously, they've been around for almost 40 years plus because of the manias. That's what I'm going off of. They've been around for a long time. They're an established entity. AEW obviously has been around, but it's still an early stage in their lifespan, and it's insane. Now, they did announce All In next year is going to be in London again. Will they be able to have that same success next year? Time will tell. But regardless, this is an insane accomplishment for AEW as a company, the wrestlers, the producers, all the backstage people, all the video people, all the music people. This is a great accomplishment that they should pat themselves on the back for, and I hope while they were there, they really tried to absorb it and take it in, because this looked like a mania. This looked like that scale, with that production, with that atmosphere. And I know wrestlers have always talked about, I want my mania moment. This could have been their mania moment without being obviously at WWE. Maybe this ticked the box, and this is a new goal for others anywhere. I don't just have to go to the one place, whether it's WWE for WrestleMania or New Japan for Wrestle Kingdom. This is just great for wrestling in its entirety. Are there things that could be better? Yes. But this was a great success for everybody, and I was stoked to watch it live. And like I said, just be part of that moment in a small way and be part of that atmosphere and environment. Good time. So, all in all, fine show. Great accomplishment. We'll have to see how things improve and go from here. And, yeah. Thanks for listening to me ramble about AEW for, holy shit, an hour. So, let's get on to topic 2, shall we? Let's talk about Mortal Kombat's beta. So this, as you're listening, wasn't this past week. It was the week before. The weekend, yeah, before that. If you pre-ordered Mortal Kombat 1, you got access to their beta. So what they're trying to do here, just like any beta, stress test, all that shit, and figure out what's working, what's not working, with a bigger Q&A panel than obviously NetherRealm has at their disposal. And I had the opportunity to play it. I only played maybe a day's worth, a few hours, but I had a good time with it. And I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts and experience with it, what was included, all that jazz. So, for the Mortal Kombat beta, we had 2 modes available to us as players. We had a single-player Towers mode, and we had the online, typical, casual matchmaking fights. Characters available to us, we had Sub-Zero, Kenshi, Kitana, Liu Kang, Li Mei, and Johnny Cage. And we had 4 cameos available in Frost, Kano, Sonya, and Jax. I think we've talked about it in other podcasts with our Mortal Kombat updates, roster talks, whatever, but just once again, confirmed character spots playable, there are 24. Usually that roster sheet does not include the DLC characters. Those usually get added post-launch. So 24, I'm believing, at launch, along with 16 cameo characters. So 24 playable, 16 cameo once again. And we also got 2 stages that we were able to play with this beta. We had the tea house and we had Johnny Cage's mansion, both with 2 time settings, day, night. So you can see a little bit difference there. I had the opportunity, or rather took the opportunity to play as all the characters and use all of the cameos. One thing I noticed, this may just because the beta, fatalities, typical, performing of the fatalities, but they don't have their distance listed. Most of the ones that I did do seem to be mainly mid-distance to anywhere. There was one fatality that was a close range one, which was Johnny's. He just kind of essentially grabbed the person and smashed their face in the ground. So that one was close. And all of the cameos have fatalities tied with them. Personally, I haven't watched any of the combat casts, so if you're like, oh, what are you talking about? Of course they laid all this out. My bad. But all the cameo characters do have fatalities as well. And similar to what the cameo characters are doing in being homages to the old games and the old timelines. Someone's fire alarm is going off again. These are classic fatalities also from the old games. So they are more tame than your newer fatalities. They are quick, short, to the point, but similar to what MK1 did with the nostalgia factor, as we've talked about many times. The cameo character is doing the same thing here, which I do appreciate. That NetherRealm does really respect its past in storytelling and obviously the games that they put out there. So just rewarding those long-term fans of like, hey, this is still here, and getting obviously the upper res visuals of it, even if they don't logically make sense or are kind of silly, still fine. It's just a nice little thing to see and have added into the game. In terms of gameplay, most of my time was spent in towers. To be honest, I just wanted to have the opportunity to learn characters, not like a lot of people online doing their insane and crazy combos, just like the FGC, the fighting game community, does always. I am a very lower casual on that bar. Like, I would say I'm more interested and more engrossed in the community than your typical everyday person. But like, if I'm going online, 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to get my ass whooped. So these longer combos, these are things like frame data, all that stuff that I don't pick up on. I learn things more by a feel, and I don't feel I can learn that in an online setting. The towers, the single player stuff, that's more my speed, that's more my pace. So I focus mainly on there to play everybody and use all the cameos as well. In my opinion, Lee May and Johnny Cage were the most fun to me to use. I think some of their maneuvers were... it was easier to pick up on some combos with those guys, and that was a lot of fun. One that I kind of struggled with was Kenshi. I'm not sure why. There was just some disconnect with me. I just couldn't find anything to use or to go off of. Once again, only playing a couple hours. I know I could have probably been a little bit more due diligent of like looking at the combo list or looking at the move set and then being like, oh, it's 1, 2, 1, 3 or whatever. Button presses. I didn't want to do that. That's something that kind of pulls away from me in fighting games of like, I respect people who do that or are really entrenched in it and look up this data and look up all this stuff and like go into the training modes for hours to try and nail their combos down. To me, not fun. It's not my cup of tea, so that's not something I'm going to do. And while looking at a combo list isn't even like that strenuous or whatever, I just wanted to play the game and kind of figure out stuff on my own. So doing that, Kenshi didn't click with me as well. I'm sure if I did take the time to look into it, it would be a little bit better, but just telling you honestly what my experience was. So yeah, Cage and Lee May, those characters resonated with me a little bit more in terms of moveset and like what they could do. I briefly touched on the combat casts, if you've watched those from NetherRealm, the 3 developers there, was it Tyler, Derek, and oh man, what is her name? Wow, I had it and I blanked. I'm gonna feel awful because I follow her on Twitter. She's great. One moment, I'm so sorry. Stephanie, Jesus, my bad. Those 3 have been breaking down the characters since MK1 through Injustice 2, MK11. They do great breakdowns. They show you the movesets. They do matches and explain a lot of the lore. If you've been watching those, I'm sure they've touched upon some of the new origins for certain characters. I haven't watched them, but Johnny, with this new rewrite, we talked about it maybe in the last update, I don't recall, but he doesn't have what I think Dio called the glow. Doesn't have the glow in this one where he had like the energy from Shinnok or whatever awoken from him and eventually Cassie in the old timeline. He doesn't have that in this rewrite. Using him in this game, he had some kind of similar ability, but it was almost like the Flash is what I akined it to, where it was like this rapid movement where he had almost like a shadow or a follow him, like a mist kind of thing. I'm not sure what that is. I'm sure we'll figure out with the campaign mode, but just seeing that was like, oh, all right. Li Mei, I don't know anything about her past. My experience with the Mortal Kombats, once again, is 10 was my first, went back to play 9, and then 11, and now we're at now. I played Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcades, did awful at it, but I have no experience with Mortal Kombat 1, 3 through 8, so I don't know a lot of these other characters, where I'm like, oh, this is a new character to me. No idea. So, like, I'm not going to know a lot about Li Mei. I know they've announced since a lot of the roster as we're approaching the September release date. So hold on, I'm going to pick up or pull up the site real quick just so I can talk about who I know, who I don't know. So I don't know much about Rain. I know he appeared in 9. Or he was playable in 9, and he appeared briefly, in 10. So Li Mei is completely new to me. Havoc is completely new to me. Ashra is completely new. Okay, so only 3 of them. So there's going to be some lapse in knowledge in terms of what their past was and what has changed for them, but I am excited to learn more about them as we go forward. Since we're on the roster page, just out of curiosity, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 20. Okay. So, as of right now, there's 20 characters. And we didn't know this before the beta, but Gamescom was also the week after the beta. We did get a new trailer that showed off Sindel and General Shao, and then we got another look at Raiden. So we had those guys in there. That story trailer looks great. Cool to see the little bit changes in their characters. Sindel being Queen, I think, still is canon. General Shao, formerly Shao Kahn in the past universe. It's cool to see him in this early stages. We'll have to see how aggressive he gets. And maybe he'll still do the kind of hostile takeover or become leader. I think that's the big pull and draw from this game overall, is just like this fresh start, but seeing what's different and what kind of story they are going to tell with Liu Kang now being in charge. Sorry for that little tangent. Back to the beta. Everything played smoothly from what I played. Cameos are very helpful, but was an element that I was not using to its fullest potential. Obviously, it is the big selling point for this title in like terms of change in gameplay. It was one of those things that didn't register in my brain of like using, because normally with Mortal Kombat games, it's not a thing unless you're doing the special towers. So for me, I wasn't using it as much as maybe not that I should have, but I was not using it nearly enough to have a grasp on it, or like building combos off of it or continuing them or whatever. So it's there. It's something we'll have to experience and build upon as the release approaches and the game's out. But everything ran smoothly. Playing online, my notes. Once again, I'm just talking from experience. Just want to be open and honest with you guys. Only played a handful of matches. Weird how people, especially in the beta, decline your opponent matchup. So you get linked up with a person and you get an accept decline. I don't know why. It's the beta. These records aren't going to carry over. You want to just play matches. People who decline, I have no idea why you decline. Just play the game. Who cares? You're here to play it. You're playing online. Just do it. All right? Nike swoosh. The matches I did play, however, once again ran smoothly. There was one that was a little jittery. I was not playing with a wired connection, so I get that as part of my fault. You know, it's a better have it wired. Fighting game fans know that and are very specific about that. But it was a wireless to wireless connection. So it was a little frame droppy there, but that was the only bad match. The rest ran fine. And then you're always going to find the people who just use the cheap stuff. Ranged combat is always one of those things that is stressful, right? I'm sure higher level players, like, you know what you're doing, so you can deal with it and adapt to it. That kind of middle stage to early players where someone just does fireball, for example, to just do those projectiles over and over and over and over again, is very frustrating to deal with. I ran into one individual who was using Sub-Zero. Totally cool. I was using Johnny Cage because that was the last person I used in the towers. I thought I had a good grasp of them. Basic grasp of them. He did the slide. He would back up, slide. Back up, slide. Maybe he would do something in close, but he always went back to that slide. Worst thing is when you recognize that someone's doing the move, you know it's coming. And I could predict it, or I would call it out every time. And it was like 50-50. I either block it, or I'm getting hit by it still because I can't react fast enough, whatever. Knowing why I'm losing and then not being able to turn it around on its head and beat them for their, not stupidity, that sounds more mean than I intended to, their choice of tactics, let's just say that, sucks. Granted, I'm sure that's something that comes with practice or whatever, but that was something that got to me. I was like, I know exactly what you're gonna do, and I can't I can't punish you for this. And that's a fighting game term, like punishing combos or punishing movements and mistakes. That was a little frustrating, but I get that. That is a very me thing. That has nothing to do with the game. That is just something practice-wise will get better. Controller-wise, like getting used to the game, that's something that I will get better with over time or recognize better. It was just frustrating to run into that so early of like, ugh, you're this guy. All right, well, here we go. Because that's a big detractor for me in online play, is it's either you run into the players that do that, just boop, 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 have no game plan and just do the same thing over and over again, or it's the people who are really, 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 really good and have extended combos and you can't do anything. It's like, where's the middle ground? Where's the person of my skill level or slightly above my skill level where it's a decent back and forth? If it's a back and forth, even in a loss where I go, I lost, it's fun. I understand what's going on, and like, that's engaging. And that's for any multiplayer game. Like, you don't want somebody who's cheap and you don't want to just be swept. You want that middle ground where you feel like you're doing something, there's a little bit of challenge behind it, and then you go from there. If you're the ultra competitive where you're like, I gotta have a perfect winning streak, touch grass seems to be the more recent term. Like, calm down. It's not that big a deal. If you're going to Evo, fine. Yes, you want to win your matches. If you're just at home sitting on your couch, chill out. You don't need to rage quit. There was so many quitalities on X, on Twitter, that I was seeing people share. It's like, why? Why are you wasting your time? Whatever. But anyways, sorry, I've been kind of rambling on this. Mortal Kombat 1's beta was a lot of fun. I appreciate the opportunity that NetherRealm obviously gives us. Obviously, it helps them. But appreciate the little preview that they do allow us to do with the pre-order here. Looking forward to the game coming out. And yeah, just really the big thing is I'm stoked for the story. They've been crushing it these past couple story and campaigns that they've done, both in the Mortal Kombat universe and the Injustice games. Really enjoyed those. So I'm excited to see where this goes going forward with, once again, the rerun of the timeline, the rewriting, see where these different characters go, and then also see who else shows up from the past. Speaking of Sindel and Shao Kahn, or rather General Khan, we got, I think his name is Motaro, the like horseman, the centaur. He's a cameo in there too, so it's another fun one of just like a nod to the past. It's not a character I know very well, but I remember always hearing his name in the initial theme song, so good stuff there. But looking forward to the release, September 14th, so get your copy, let's play, let's have some fun. Moving on to the last topic today, let's talk about the Twisted Metal show. Hell yeah. All right, well, no. This is a weird one, because I remember seeing that initial trailer and being like, or reveal, and being like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing with this show. And I'm not going to lie. I watched it last night. There's 12 episodes. I've watched... Wait, 12 episodes? 10 episodes? Sorry, hold on. I have watched a majority of the show. And I'll admit, for the beginning episode, I was really shaking my head of like, am I watching this right now? What's going on? Because Twisted Metal, the show, 10 episodes by the way. If you know the games at all, this show really made me scratch my head of like, what are we doing here? But it won me over, guys. I kind of like the show. I'm not going to lie. Now, I am not going to put this at the peak of cinema or television programming. Okay? Don't get me wrong there. It's a silly show. It's not super well produced. I say it's well produced, but there's some stuff that looks very cheesy. But the characters are interesting. Their origins are interesting. And the main journey I'm intrigued by. I'm enjoying myself. If you want, or you've even thought about watching this show, I would say this sounds bad because like everybody says it, especially with like anime. I feel like, oh, you got to make it through the first 2 seasons and then you're good from there. If you can make it through that first episode and tell yourself, like, realize what they're doing and showing, like what kind of tone they're putting out there. If you can not turn off your brain, but if you can accept like, okay, this is not, if you're a fan of the games, this is not what the games were. This is just taking that and then putting its own spin on it and then just enjoy the ride you're on. I think it's great. It's a good time. There's stupid comedy. There's violence. So heads up for that if that's not your thing. But there's fun characters, and at points the story is really intriguing of like, it's like the thing that I feel like good shows do, where there's the overlooming arc of like something's going on in the background. There's that tension of like, oh, what's going to happen with this character next, or how are we going to deal with this problem, or whatever it is. I think this show has elements of that, and I think that's where it's fun. So like I said, get past the first episode. That's your initiation of like, this is the comedy, this is the tone, this is the stupidity at times, and this is the graphic fidelity at times that we're dealing with. If you can get past that one and just enjoy the ride from there, I think you'll get something out of this. And I've definitely enjoyed my time with it. I still have 2 more episodes to watch. I did want to watch the whole thing before doing this review to go a little spoilery and do the stuff, but timing didn't work out. So I've watched 8 out of 10. From those 8 out of 10, once again, I'm going to avoid spoilers this podcast because I didn't finish it. But if you want to talk spoilers, reach out on social media. But the characters we have met here have been enjoyable. There's some that I do recognize from the games. My experience with games is very limited. I remember most of my time with these games were playing with my cousins, Charlie, who's been on the podcast before, and his brother Steven. That's been my experience with these titles. Twisted Metal Black, I believe, is the one I put the most time into, and then I did buy the 2012 PlayStation 3 release of Twisted Metal. Really enjoyed it. But I don't remember much of the story. I don't remember much of what the characters were doing. I do remember as a kid and growing up, like, horror's not my thing. So, like, being timid, I guess, is the right term of, like, really going in deep with the story mode and having that unsettling, like, feeling and that these creepy characters and blah, blah, blah. Like, I never dived into it super hard. I just like the car-to-car gameplay of shooting guns from your car and there's rockets and all that stuff. Like, that was fun. And that arcadey sense. So that was more what I got out of it from my experience playing. But it's cool to see these characters now, and whether their origins were discussed in the game, which I'm sure they were. But seeing their characters here, learning about their stories, why they're kind of fucked up like they actually are, or what happened, that's where the intrigue is. Seeing Sweet Tooth stuff is intriguing. I still want to know more about him, but seeing his journey in this show, kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. They kind of portrayed it that he was going to be like a big threat in this, and he is for a moment, but then he kind of goes on his own side story, and you keep up with it, which is nice. But you get more characters throughout. So like you get Bloody Marys in there, which once again, I don't know really much about the characters in full, like who's actually a character, who's not actually a character. I was trying to find like roster pages, but just a quick search I did poor of that. But like Agent Stone I recognized, so hearing more about him was cool. And the Preacher I recognized. We haven't seen, or there's some other ones where I was like, oh, I recognize this character more just because I happen to use them. Like Mr. Grimm. I don't think Mr. Grimm's in here at all. Or if you want to get really goofy with it, what was it? Axel, the guy with the big wheels on his sides. Yeah. Like, he's not in here. But you'll see some other ones like Calypso you get a joke about. I thought Dollface was in this. Maybe she is. There's 2 more episodes. I haven't seen her. There's some other ones here by name where like, oh, that was a character. Okay, so we'll have to see. But yeah, it's been cool to see this world, see what their origins are. And yeah, it's weirdly intriguing to keep going. Like, they definitely have that hook for me of like, yeah, I want to see more of this. So there's 10 episodes in total, roughly half hour to 40 minutes each, so it's not super big investment time wise compared to like some other recent shows where it's like an hour per episode, which I know that can be a little rough, especially if you're not interested in the subject matter. But these are a little bit more bite-sized, which I do appreciate. But also it's that nice thing where, and it could just also be because it's made that connection with me, where that 30 to 40 minutes feels really good and solid where it doesn't feel fast. Like, it's not slow because, like, oh, this is the worst. But, like, I'm so ingrained in it or involved in it that it feels hearty, meaty. I can't think of the right word. But it's good, and I've liked that. There's a few shout-outs to the games and Easter eggs, and I'm sure, like, IGN and those sites have poured it out and put out articles for it that are much better than anything I'm going to catch up on, similar to the Marvel products and all that stuff. I know there was a cheat code that was referenced at one point, which I appreciated, and then something from production side, like if there's any rockets or anything, like they do have that purple flare behind them, similar to the game, so that's just a nice touch. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good. I've had a good time with it. I'm curious, obviously not reaching the finale yet. I'm curious if the story they are telling will wrap up in a first season, or if they plan on doing more seasons with it. I'm really not sure. If they are going to do more than one season, I'd be intrigued to have this world continue to keep building on these characters they have started. But if it's just one season as well, hey, nothing wrong with that, because, you know, sometimes smaller experiences are good. Similar to video games. A 20-hour experience sometimes can be rough. Sometimes you just want a shorter game to play through and get something out of it and be like, yeah, that was really good. More bite size, if you will. Last thing I'll say is shout out to Samoa Joe. Wrestler, he crushed it as Sweet Tooth. Did a great job. I know he's not voicing him. I know Will Arnett is. I thought that would be a disconnect for me, just obviously the voice not matching. Obviously Sweet Tooth wearing his mask, you're not going to see Joe's mouth all that much. But I think he did a really good job in terms of, pantomiming? Like acting out the same emotion, mannerisms of what would match that voice. So that's really good and cool to see him go outside of the wrestling world and do these kind of things. So he's got this. He's got King Shark in the eventual Suicide Squad game when that does come out. And I'm sure there's something else that I'm forgetting, but happy for him. He did a great job here. So yeah. Well, guys, that's been another episode of the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You can drop a follow over there. You will get notified when we go live with the show. So you can join the chat and the fun conversation over there if you'd like. But if you can't catch live, that's A-OK. You can go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for you music on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support the show: likes, follows, subscriptions, reviews, comments, whatever it is. It may seem small, but it does help the channel grow and helps us out in a big way. So if you take the second, if you're not following or subscribing wherever you're listening to this right now, do that. That way, you know, you can be connected with us and know when the other episodes go live, all that fun stuff. You can check it out and watch and listen to it. We'd appreciate you for it. Thanks for hanging out, guys, spending some time with me, giving us a watch, giving us a listen. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.